free to drop in the chat. So without further ado, we can get started with the presentation. I'll get my screen shared and we'll dive right in. All right, can I get a quick thumbs up from the host to see if my screen sharing is working? Awesome. So I'm going to talk to you today about how you can create impact without being a founder. First, a little bit of an introduction. I'm Stephanie Sue. I'm an incoming freshman and computer science major at UC Berkeley. I'm also leading ADAS for Youth, which is an organization that consults and mentors student leaders, and Superposition, which you'll hear about on the next slide. My main interests are in tech, business, and impact, and this is something I'm going to be pursuing in college. If you want to keep up with my journey, then feel free to follow me on my socials. My Instagram, LinkedIn, and personal website are all listed on the screen. That's where you can find my content creation, which is on LinkedIn, and all of my experiences from high school on my personal website. Now I'm going to introduce you to Superposition, which is my pride and joy. We're an organization that bridges the gender gap in STEM through events, chapters, and mentorship. Some of our awesome programs include 101 chapters in 20 countries, the Bay Area's largest all-women hackathon, and 2 mentorship programs in partnership with Uber. Our next big event is actually in partnership with Uber and has not been announced yet, so you get a little sneak peek into that one. The best way to get involved with Superposition right now is to start a chapter. All the relevant information is linked on the screen, and if you want to find any Superposition opportunities in general, our link tree is down here. If you want to keep up with Superposition on Instagram or our website, then all of those links are over here. But again, if you don't want to memorize all of them, if you only want to memorize one thing, then just our link tree will be fine. Love to see all of you get involved with the Superposition community. Let's start with a quick outline of today's talk. So we're going to first set the scene. Why am I even talking about the situation? Then I'll talk about the founder's mentality, how I grew Superposition without being the founder, and some actionable steps you can take to create impact within your own organizations. So now that I've introduced myself, I want to give the floor back to you. Who are you? Are you a founder? Are you a leader, not a founder? Are you not a founder, but you want to be? Whichever one of these criteria resonates with you the most, please drop that in the chat. I would love to see who this audience is so we can tailor that talk. I'll keep my eye on the chat too, because if you have any questions throughout that, I'll be willing to answer. Awesome, Sophia is a founder. Okay, Purna is mix of 2 and 3. Claire's also founder. That's awesome. So today's talk is going to be about those who want to create impact without being a founder. But clearly, all of you have made so much impact already, so I'm not sure how much you'll need to this. But you might be asking right now, why should I care? Why does it matter whether or not I'm a founder? Well, here's the problem. The elephant in the room that everyone's experiencing, and I just went through, is college admissions. This leads to pressure from peers, parents, and from within. You want to be able to stand out from these millions of high school students who are applying to your same schools. In fact, Berkeley, the school I'm going to, got over 110,000 applications this year. Admissions are getting more competitive than ever, so people want to find a way to make themselves unique, and oftentimes that's through founding an organization. I'm sure you've heard all these at one point for standing on college admissions. Being top 1% of your class, get a 4-point-something GPA, take all the hard courses you can. If you've ever heard anybody tell you this, please drop a yes in the chat. I would love to know that I'm not the only person who dealt with this, although I am from the Bay Area and we are just a different breed here. Okay, great. Looks like everybody can relate to this in some way. So a common thread that I've heard across all college admissions consulting websites is leadership. And the essential question here is, how will you contribute to our campus? And the thing about this is leadership is undoubtedly important. But it has also fostered the latest trend of founding a business, initiative, or a nonprofit. Here are the most frequent types I've seen: tutoring low-income students, fundraising for basically any current event that's happening right now, getting girls in STEM, calling myself out here, hackathons, COVID-19, volunteering. If you've ever heard of an initiative of this kind, drop a me in the chat, and hint, you should have, because I just told you about superposition and we check both of these boxes. Yeah, it looks like everybody's heard of some organization like this. You'll see them all over Instagram. The thing is, founding isn't bad, but founding for the sake of founding is. So I'm going to talk to you about the founder's mentality, which is kind of a phrase that I coined to describe this phenomenon where the prioritization of founders all over, where there's prioritization of founders over all other members in an organization. And I do agree, founders should be praised, but for the act of doing and not just founding. Here's what this looks like in practice. For me, I'm often misidentified as the founder of Superposition. In interviews and takeovers, I'm asked, how did you found it? And the simple answer is, I didn't. And we shouldn't assume that anybody who's leading a prominent organization is the same person who founded it, because that means the other members are overshadowed. Also, I've seen a lot of interviews, awards, and speaking opportunities reserved for founders. There has been this awesome social entrepreneurship program called 3.dash that I can't apply for because I'm not the founder of my organization, even though I have created a lot of impact and I have grown Superposition significantly. In fact, I was invited to interview about one of my organizations. However, the interview form requested the founder of the organization, and all the questions were revolved around that. So I know this person reached out to me because they wanted to hear about Superposition, but I ended up having to fill that form out for another organization because I just couldn't answer them. Another thing is founding is being a sign of credibility, even though that's not necessarily the case. Did you know that Elon Musk didn't actually found Tesla? However, he made Tesla what it is today, and that's why he's famous for it. In practice, you don't need to be a founder to do great things, but it seems like the student org community has a little bit mixed up, most likely due to college admissions. I've also had future nominations requesting ideally the founder. It just kind of leaves a poor taste in my mouth because that means all other members are overshadowed. So yeah, let's go into the implications because I've already talked about them. First is that founding is considered the end all and be all, even though it's really just the beginning. Once you found an organization, there's so much legwork you have to go through in order to actually create tangible results. And also, non-founding team members don't get the recognition they deserve. I have so many awesome team members on Superposition, and I just know that they don't get as much credit as I do, even if they put in so much work simply because of their title. They have to work so much harder to prove their contributions are valuable. This also perpetuates the idea that you need to be a founder to merit recognition when you really don't. So here's the results. The main problem I see with student initiatives. Initiatives with identical mission statements, competing for resources, and competing instead of working together. This also leads to rampant plagiarism. I had one of my former directors copy paste so much of Superposition's new initiatives onto her own organization, and I eventually had to let her go because that kind of conflict of interest was just not healthy for either organization. It also devalues nonprofits altogether. You know the number of times I've gone on r/A2C and see people memeing student organizations, and yes, I sometimes partake in that because I truly think some organizations don't do that much. But when there's so many organizations that don't do anything, then inevitably the organizations that do something are still going to be devalued because they're within that group. Instagram nonprofits, as I will also call them, tend to focus on vanity metrics and social media rather than impact. And sometimes it leads to exploiting social justice issues for likes. I've watched an Instagram takeover about how a girl got lots and lots of likes and shares on her content despite not having that many followers. And then she said, yeah, just hop on and talk about current events. And that just really left me with a bad taste in my mouth. Because I was like, you were talking about current events supposedly because you want to help them, but now you're marketing them as a strategy to get more likes. And that's really unfortunate, but I know that some organizations do that. This also promotes a fast fashion approach to social entrepreneurship, as in people want results as quickly as possible, whether or not it's actually making an impact, whether or not it's actually harming their cause overall by depleting resources from existing organizations. So let's celebrate founders, but let's also celebrate the leaders, change makers, and disruptors. Overall, let's celebrate impact over titles. So with that, I'm going to give you my journey about how I expanded Superposition without being the founder. I joined Superposition after attending Superposition 2, which was the Bay Area's largest all-women and non-binary hackathon. It was actually my first hackathon and first all-women hackathon. And I realized how empowering it was to be in a space with so many other girls sharing your same interests. And because of that, I wanted to join the team to spread that experience to as many girls as possible. I joined the Superposition 3 organizing team, and that was held in April of 2019 at Visco headquarters, which, might I say, is the prettiest headquarters I've ever been to, but I think prettiest headquarters in general totally makes sense for Visco. After that, I was promoted to lead director Superposition 4, which was held in 2020 at Uber. We narrowly escaped COVID. Actually, if we held the hackathon 1 week later, probably would have been canceled, but I'm so happy it went off without a hitch. We've had over 620 applications to attend and 220 attendees from 8 states and 2 countries. Most of our attendees were first-time hackers, and a large chunk were first-time programmers. Thankfully, a lot of other companies supported us on this journey because we had a total of 40 in-kind and monetary sponsors. So after the hackathon was over, I was just staring at a page, looking at these numbers. We had 4 hackathons, 484 attendees, and 119 projects. But what's next? After all of that, after saying we're bridging the gender gap in STEM, what do we do next? I didn't want to just have one hackathon every single year and say we're doing our part to bridge the gender gap in STEM. We had the resources and the woman power to do even more. So I thought to myself, female empowerment doesn't stop after 24 hours, and neither should Superposition. So I decided to expand Superposition beyond just a 24-hour event to a year-round initiative providing opportunities for women in STEM. Here are some of our initiatives. We have a virtual webinar series, a mentorship program with Uber, chapter expansion, women empowerment conference, and of course our annual hackathon. I'm gonna go more in depth on each of these on this slide, just so you can see the amount of work we've been doing since then. First is our webinar series. Currently, we've had around 40 events, still gotta update that slide, but we've done so many workshops around STEM and career development, such as intro to UX design, personal branding, and building a digital presence. After that, I started a chapter program because most of the attendees at our hackathon were from the Bay Area, a place with so many STEM opportunities. But if we were really to bridge the gender gap in STEM, we have to be reaching people all over. Unfortunately, we can't bring everyone to Superposition, but we can bring Superposition to them. And that's what sparked the idea of our chapter program, which has since grown to over 101 chapters, and in a couple days, 107. Next up, we have our mentorship program in partnership with Uber. I think this is still one of our coolest programs to date because Uber actually reached out to us wanting to host this after our hackathon. We were able to pair over 150 women with mentors from Uber. Next up, we have our empowerment conference, which is our first ever conference meant to inspire women leaders. This actually wasn't related to STEM because we wanted to branch out beyond just girls who are already interested in STEM. So we've gotten over 2,500 signups, 78 countries, a lot of cool speakers such as Julia Landauer, who is a 2-time NASCAR champion, and Jay Dharma Wangza, who is an entrepreneur and YouTuber with over 500 followers across all her socials. And of course, we have our virtual hackathon, which we do every single year. Most years it's in person, but this year we had to go virtual. Get this, all of this was possible because I didn't found the organization. I had an awesome foundation to work off of when Superposition was just hackathon, and I didn't have to start from scratch. Here's how. Our reputation as the Bay Area's largest all-women non-binary hackathon helped us secure Uber as our Superposition 4 venue. Then the funds from our previous hackathons made Superposition 4 possible. We were really struggling with fundraising at that time. And because of that, because of the funds we were able to lean on from the past hackathons, we didn't have to worry all that much. Third, the credibility we gained from our Uber partnership helped us secure a lot of sponsorships and shatter our attendance records. We went from previously 150 being our record attendance to 220. Then our strong audience after the hackathon helped us succeed as we expanded beyond that. Here's some of the impact we've been able to create. In a survey of around 150 Superposition community members, 99% felt empowered by our program's content, 100% became more confident in their STEM abilities, and a lot of other fantastic statistics showing that we are truly helping women STEM. And again, this wasn't possible until after we expanded beyond a hackathon. So now it's your turn. I want to teach you about how you can do that within your own organizations. If you want to take your impact to the next level, keep paying attention. First is, of course, joining an organization. I know that that's kind of the thing right now for students, and I highly recommend it. It's so fun. You can meet people from all over the world and genuinely impact people. So here are things you want to consider before you join an organization. First, your fit. Do you care about the org's cause? What are your future goals? Does this organization help you get to your future goals? What are your skill sets versus the organization's needs? Maybe they really need a graphic designer right now and you're a whiz with Canva and Adobe Illustrator. That would be a great fit. There's also work culture. I can't speak on many other nonprofits, but Superposition's work culture is very fast-paced, but we're also flexible and adaptable. Then the current leadership and organizational structure. So if the leader of the organization's not doing that much, then chances are the rest of the organization's not doing that much. So you want to have clear indications that there is a strong leadership structure and that whoever's in charge of that organization truly cares about it. Third, learning opportunities. You don't want to join an organization that won't help you grow. That's just going to keep you stagnant. So see if there's any way for you to make company connections or learn new skills. Do something you haven't done before. Fourth, leadership opportunities. I still think this is incredibly important, even if some people try to milk these for resume padding. Leadership importance are necessary. Leadership opportunities are important because in life you will have to lead other people, and that's a skill you should develop early on. And fifth, existing social impact. Past performance is the best indicator of future success. If the organization hasn't made that much impact to date, then it's unlikely you'll be able to create that much more once you join. And last but not least, potential for the organization's growth. Yes, an organization might have done something amazing in the past, but if they can't keep up that growth, then it's very unlikely that they'll continue seeing that past success. I'm going to give you a quick audit on all of the organizations I joined during high school. This is every single organization did, no matter how long I stayed within it. Of course, there's Superposition. I love Superposition. Then there's Ad Astra Youth, which I founded last year. Project Create a Future. It's an environmental org that I also co-founded in sophomore year. Project Venture, financial literacy organization. Key Club. Hopefully y'all know what Key Club is, but it's a service org. High School Hacks. It's a very well-done high school hackathon. Not gonna lie, nothing got done, but you don't even know that. And then Nanoseed, which was a pretty cool organization, provided microloans for students and farmers in rural China. And then, of course, Speech Innovate, because a lot of kids are forced into that, just like I did. So here's a quick audit on the stuff that I would have joined and wouldn't have joined if I could go back in time and redo my high school. Obviously, Superposition Ad Astra, because I'm repping both of those right now. Not as much Create a Future, even though I had so much fun doing it. And I learned a lot about running a business and manufacturing. But the thing is, I'm a computer science major. Environmental science, yes, that's cool, but doesn't necessarily propel my goals forward. So I didn't think it was a good fit for me. Fourth, Project Venture. Financial literacy is important to me, but not enough for me to want to prioritize that when I have so many things that are aligning with my goals. And then Key Club and Speech Innovate, a little questionable, like I'm not entirely sure, because I know Key Club did nothing for my college application, not that I joined it for that purpose. The original reason why I want to stick with Key Club is because of the community, and that's why it's a question mark. It's that it didn't necessarily help my resume, but I made so many friends doing it, and it was a fantastic experience. Same with Speech Debate. Debate is ridiculously time consuming. Oh my gosh, I gave up entire weekends to go to tournaments, and it's really common for people to come back from debate tournaments and take the Monday off just so they can catch up on all their homework and actually get a break. Those things were exhausting. But as time consuming and not helpful for college applications as debate was, it was probably one of the most empowering experiences I've ever had. Because for the first time, I was learning to advocate for myself, to use critical thinking, and not just argue with someone like personal attacks or something like that, but use logic to make a point. And I was also able to develop a lot of confidence that I wouldn't have otherwise. Like, I'm a 5'2" girl, like I'm not the most intimidating person out there, but you know that when I put on a blazer, I go behind a podium and I start debating. That's when I feel my most powerful. So the point of this is you can do things for fun. Not everything has to contribute to your resume to be worthwhile. And also, my debate experience has contributed to me doing all this public speaking. So I highly recommend doing it if you're interested in that. Next, evaluate your position within that organization. Essential question here is, do you have the ability to implement the changes that you desire? This doesn't have to be in a leadership position because most people don't start off as one. I started off on the operations team, not director of operations, but operations team at Superposition. And I recognize it's easiest to implement changes when you're in a position of leadership because you don't have to go through as many barriers to make the changes you want to make. So, have an extension plan. This is something that I developed for Key Club and for Superposition, and basically any organization I want to work my way up in. Some examples of an ascension plan. Key Club, I started off as service committee lead, and then I knew after that I want to take the lead to vice president and then president. I also did this on the division level. I started off as executive assistant and I tried to run for lieutenant governor. Although I didn't win, I still think that extension plan was a really good idea because I knew early on what my goals were so I could keep working towards that. For Superposition, I started out on the operations team. Then I was planning on becoming operations director, and then I became lead director of Superposition. Of course, I didn't actually become director of operations because our previous lead director promoted me directly to her position. So that was really cool. But if that hadn't happened, then I would have worked my way up like this. And if you're not in a leadership position, question, are your leaders receptive to new ideas? That's such an important part. And if your leaders aren't receptive to change, then I may or may not recommend going to another organization where you have more potential for growth. Here's a quick dive into entrepreneurship. So, unlike entrepreneurship, which most of you probably have heard of, entrepreneurship is a system that allows a member to act like an entrepreneur within an organization. They're self motivated, proactive, and action oriented, and they think outside the box. Google seems to have this 20% program where 20% of your time can be used to develop crazy, wacky new ideas. And that's how Google fosters this entrepreneurship culture so that they don't have to rely on their competitors for new ideas. They have a bunch of entrepreneurs within their own company. So step 1, evaluate. I recommend doing something called a SWOT analysis, where you evaluate the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So you can read exactly what that is on the screen, but I'll quickly go over them just so I don't go over time. But first, strengths and weaknesses. These are internal factors, so things you actually can control. So a strength for Superposition's team is that we had a lot of experience planning hackathons. But a weakness that we had is that the remaining team members after Superposition 4 actually didn't attend that many hackathons to begin with, so we relied on interviewing lead directors of other organizations to get inspiration. Opportunities and threats are external factors. These are outside of your control. What kind of opportunities are there in the NPO market that will help yours succeed? One of them was the fact that COVID was happening and everything was going virtual. As sad as COVID was and how devastating it was, it gave a lot of organizations an opportunity to go fully virtual and spread their impact all across the world and not just in their local area. Threats. There are so many women in STEM organizations. I can't tell you how many organizations follow me on Instagram on the weekly. There's a lot of competition out there, so it is harder to stand out. The strategy here is to be a nagging parent. Roast everything, but with love. Consider all these different things. Consider everything you want to keep and change about this organization. And then examine your KPIs, which are key performance indicators, and use those to gauge how much you've progressed towards your mission. Here's an example. Here are all the different qualities that I just talked to you about. And as you can see, most of these are kind of critical. Like, we didn't have a connection with the team. The mission statement didn't exist. Our accountability was ineffective. Our social media was weak and only active near the hackathon. And you would say that, okay, you saw all these things wrong with your organization. Why did you continue? It's because I knew we had past success and I knew we could fix all these relatively easily. Here's some of our key performance indicators too. We had a number of attendees. It was a record low for Superposition 3. Like, it was so unfortunate. I don't even want to talk about it. And then we had a lot, we didn't even track first time hackers for beginners. So as you can see, there were a lot of things that were in need of patching up. While we're in that discussion, let's quickly talk KPIs. So KPIs are key performance indicators, which are measurable values that demonstrate how effectively an organization is achieving your objectives. So what's your desired outcome? Why does this outcome even matter? And while you're in the process of choosing your metrics, avoid vanity metrics like page views, followers, signups, etc. When you say that your impact is only, well, not only, but having a couple hundred followers, that's not actually a sign of impact and shows that you haven't been doing enough to impact people in a certain way. So we're going to get into discussion about what impact is in a sec, but let's just settle on, let's not use page views and followers or impressions as impact metrics. Thank you. Step 2, create a sense of direction. This is most directly related to branding and positioning. So some questions you want to ask is, what problem are you trying to target? How will you differentiate yourself from other initiatives? And what is your main motivation here? You want to know what direction you're going in so you can keep working towards that. Here are the elements of a brand. I'm not going to go too in depth on this because this isn't the most important thing right now, but you can just take a screenshot and look over this if you're interested in later. Also, there's so many resources online about developing brand. This is something that I see a lot of student organizations missing. So if you get in on this, then you can easily differentiate yourself from the crowd. So here's a little intro into Superposition's branding. We have a tagline. So this is what I'll answer whenever you ask me what Superposition is. We have a mission statement, although it is in need of a revision. Then we have a couple of sentences that I use over and over again so that you associate them with Superposition every time you hear it. So our values include community, empathy, passion, and the way that we differentiate ourselves from other women in STEM organizations is that we take an abstract idea like empowerment and make it more concrete through creating opportunities. We think about all the reasons why a woman wouldn't want to join or stay in STEM, and we have programs to fix it. For example, there's a lack of role models because there aren't enough women in STEM, and that's why we have a mentorship program. Next step is to craft a story. To impact others, connect with them through storytelling. This is how humans can connect with one another. Stories resonate because we have empathy and we can relate and be inspired. So one example is with Superposition webinars. The story I created behind that was during COVID. So many students' education was disrupted, and we wanted to supplement that with a variety of workshops that they would learn in and not with school. So there's a lot of things school doesn't teach you. They don't necessarily teach you how to build a portfolio, how to build a resume, but we supplement that with our workshops. As for our chapter program, we want to spread Superposition worldwide. We want to share our empowering experience with girls across the world who may not be able to attend our hackathon. That is our story. This establishes a uniform direction and makes your brand more recognizable to your audience because they know that every single thing you do, there's a reason behind it. Now, let's talk impact because I've said this word so many times throughout this workshop that it might seem meaningless to you. But let's ask the essential question, what does impact mean to you? So for me, defining impact is how you make a positive impact, a positive difference in somebody's life. Here's a couple ways you can do that. You can solve their problems or fulfill a demonstrated need. You can motivate others to act. You can make others feel empowered, confident, inspired, etc. And it's also how are you making progress towards your goal. For me, Superposition's goal is bridging the gender gap in STEM. So some of our impact includes how many more people are more interested in STEM as a result of Superposition programs. Note that this is beyond pure numbers in social media. This is very specific to you. Your impact also doesn't need to be just numbers. It can be testimonials. It can be people who attest that your organization is the reason why they want to pursue a certain major or career. Through Superposition, I've heard so many positive feedback and testimonials just like that. And it shows that we are truly helping people on an individual level and not even through just statistics. Why does impact even matter? Well, initiatives without impact can actually cause more harm than good by competing with others and depleting resources. Also, having impact bolsters your work. It's way easier to win grants, secure sponsors, build communities, etc. Through Superposition, we've been able to get thousands upon thousands of dollars of sponsorship because these companies see that the work that we're doing. And there's a lot of personal satisfaction. When you see that somebody learned how to code because of you, that is the most amazing feeling ever. It shows that you're creating an impact beyond yourself. You're contributing to a cause that'll affect hundreds upon thousands of people. That is so empowering and helped give me a lot of confidence, even when I was struggling with my mental health. Another thing about that is if you want to write an essay about this organization or you want to win grants for your organization, you better hope you have a lot of impact to talk about. I've actually won a ton of money just by talking at Superposition, and I made my comment at personal statement all about superposition. And I think that helped me get into awesome schools like Berkeley and Carnegie Mellon. Step 3, quickly identify a problem. So, what is your organization most known for? What is your team capable of solving? And do you have the experience to tackle this problem? So, of course, there's a lot of problems within an organization once you're taking over, but you have to be reflective and receptive to feedback on others about what you should improve on. And step 4, plan and act. You should set SMART goals. Also, not going to go too in depth on this because it's pretty self-explanatory once you see all the different letters of SMART. But again, there's so many resources online that you can look into if you want to see more. And step 5, repeat. This is so important. Never stop evaluating because there's always something to be improved. Don't be afraid to experiment. There have been so many superposition programs that I tried launching that were a complete flop, and I just pretend like they didn't happen. But I wouldn't have known they would have flopped unless I tried it in the first place. So you have very little to lose here. Foster effective communication within your team as well, because so many people have great ideas, but they need the right person to motivate them to speak up. So when you recognize that there's people with talent who aren't necessarily speaking up, then encourage them to do that. Tell them that their contributions are valuable. Also consider sustainability and scalability. Sustainability is how long you can keep up at a certain effort. Last summer for Superposition, I spent over 20 hours every single week hosting all our programs, writing our newsletters, doing our marketing, etc. because we had 4 people on the team at the time. Is that sustainable? No. And it kind of detracted from the time I spent on my college essays. Yay. Also consider scalability. So how can we grow this without putting in too much more effort? That's what scalability is. And that's really important because if you can't scale your organization, then you just constantly need to bring on new members in order to do the same thing. One example of scalability is our chapter program. It doesn't take us that much more effort to manage a single chapter. However, that chapter can go on to create so much more impact that we just don't have the bandwidth to do. The best piece of advice I've gotten about student organization is having a growth-oriented mindset. I constantly ask myself, how can I take this to the next level? And that's kind of how I've grown Superposition. Every time we have a successful new program, I think, where can we take this next? How can we make this even better? And that's what has led to a lot of the growth that we have today. And last but not least, I want to leave you with the note of growing with empathy. Because yes, growth is important, but not at the expense of other people. As I showed you with that earlier example of plagiarism, one of our former directors just stole so much of the work I was doing for Superposition and applied it to her own organization, marketed as her own ideas, literally stole exact words I said in a meeting. And yes, that was in the pursuit of growth. That was in the pursuit of helping women in STEM. But when you're putting down other women in STEM in the process, that is not empowering and that's only detracting from your cause. So here are some things you need to consider when you're running your organization. Reflect on the positive and negative impact of your work. Respect other people's work and time. Foster collaboration rather than competition. Examine your biases and learn from your mistakes. Embrace diverse perspectives. And of course, pay it forward. There are so many awesome people that I've talked to in order to get advice for Superposition. And that's why I want to pay it forward for other people. When people ask me for advice about their organization, I'm more than happy to help because I was in their place once and I want to be able to pull up others and uplift them with me. So with that, I'm going to leave you with a couple of key takeaways. If you forget everything I just talked about in the past 35 minutes, then look at these bullet points. Please memorize them. Please practice them. It would mean a lot to me. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. Or if not, then you can follow me on social media and contact me later. Instagram, LinkedIn, and email are all on the screen. I hope you all enjoyed this keynote and that it was helpful for you.
Wow, thank you so much, Stephanie. That was amazing. I learned so much about how I could create impact without being a founder and like starting from scratch. Yeah.
Our next event of the day will be Intersectionality and Activism and Advocacy Workshop hosted by Mira and Sina, which will start right now. And we hope to see you all there. And once again, thank you so much, Stephanie.
Yeah, thank you, Stephanie. So I'm going to be moderating the next workshop, but essentially, I think Marissa already said we're going to be talking more about intersectionality in both activism and advocacy. And here to do so, we have Mira and Sina. So without further ado, I'll just hand it over